Welcome to Milk Market Tidbit for the October Dairy Products Report that USDA released on Wednesday. This is Dr. Lawrence Jones, and I'm recording this Friday around noon on December the 6th. So the Dairy Products Report is always our third report, and it usually comes out at the beginning of the next month. But it does tie everything together for October. What we're always interested in is what is the residual, and that is the production minus the disappearance, with the residual being the cold storage report. Now, we always kind of turn this around to say what we're going to do is come up with a disappearance by taking the production minus the residual, so the dairy products report minus the cold storage report. And I always remind everybody, if the production report comes in a little bit higher, that means that disappearance had to have come in a little bit higher. So here are the numbers for October. So first off, the cheese production for September did come up just a little bit, and also the butter production came up just a little bit. But where that actually came out is a little bit higher than what we thought it would. I thought it'd be 1.186 billion, and it came in at 1.226, but a little bit lower than what StoneX had. On a 30-day basis, month over month, it was up about 25 million pounds. So that says that the disappearance in October was probably pretty good. We've got some evidence of that. Butter production was right where StoneX had predicted it, a little bit lower than what I had it at by about 10 million pounds. So I'm going to go right to the rolling disappearance because this is one that tells the total story. And the blue line is above the black line, which means that disappearance is higher than the production on a 12-month rolling basis. So that would appear to be very bullish. But one of the things that we got to look at is our rolling disappearance is 39,329,000 pounds a day, but our October production was actually a little higher than that. So again, we're catching up here, and I would expect these two lines to come back together because there's been no big period where the blue line is, higher than the black line. This would suggest that right now we're about 34 days of excess cheese, and you can see we've been as high as like 38, but running the year so far is about 36.8, so that is down. So where could have cheese gone? Well, first let's look at kind of exports. This is the global dairy trade for this last week, and this is the spot market for Thursday. So right now it looks like the world price for butter is quite a bit higher than what our spot market is by about 40 cents, so we should be exporting it. Cheddar is $2.13. Our spot market was $1.67. Now that's up to about $1.70 today, but still that is wide enough that we should be exporting cheddar. Non-fat dry milk is basically right where we are. Overall, that global dairy trade was up about 1.2%, but cheese prices were down. It was whole milk powder. And for our 50-50 blend, it actually came down about 75 cents. So whole milk powder was up, but the individual components were down. We did get the exports yesterday. It looks like we exported about 88.8 million pounds of cheese in October, and that was 7.2% of what our production is. Typical would be around 6.9, and so we are exporting more than we would typically be exporting. And that's actually up a little bit from last month. The butter production was, right at that 3% number, and that's what we tend to run normally. So if we look at the daily cheese production, and I'm going to put the extended line in here for all of these, we're right on this long-term trend of up more cheese production. So that would appear to be somewhat bearish. Now, cheese production came in a little bit higher than we had expected it to. One of the things I like to look at is the cheese to milk ratio, and again, I put the long-term trend in here. This is the percentage of milk that goes into cheese, assuming 10 pounds of milk to 1 pound of cheese. And so we were on this trend, and then we've really accelerated that up here for the last 3 years. That says that we're using more of the milk, almost 65% of the milk is going into cheese at this point. But what's happening to the ratios? And I think this is what's going to tell the whole story. The Italian has been declining over time. That's got a negative slope. But lately, the Italians have been above what the trend is. American has a positive slope, and that would include cheddar. but for quite a while here, they've been kind of below that trend line. Cheddar by itself shows exactly the same thing, that it's below that trend line. The other cheeses, that only make up about 17% of the cheese have been above the trend line and coming up a little bit. So I think that's the main story, is that we've been producing more Italian type cheeses and less American and cheddar. And here's our American type cheeses. Here's a long-term trend. So we've really kind of slowed that down. There's quite a bit of difference between that long-term trend and where we are now, but it did come up a little bit from where we expected it to. Cheddar is exactly the same thing. There's our long-term trend. This has been going down for the last 3 years. And again, that would be a very bullish signal, because we're only paid on cheddar. We can make all the Italian we want, but we're not paid on that, simply barrels and blocks at this point. Whey production has been declining, and then it's actually declining quite a bit here. Whey had a limit up scenario yesterday, and the question is that a supply issue or demand issue? It's generally seen as a demand is very strong for whey, but at the same time, it would appear that our supply is on a downward trend. All right, let's turn to butter. One of the indices we can use for this is how much of the fat goes into butter, and that's been pretty flat. It did take a kind of what I call a gear down here in 2022. But again, it's fairly flat. About 17% of the fat is going to go into butter. At the same time, we saw this graph in the last milk market tidbit. The percentage of fat is going up, and here's our long-term trend. So we really accelerated that here for the last 3 years. Here's our daily butter production. Again, very, very seasonal on this. Same as kind of some of the other graphs. We've been going up. We kind of came down a gear here, but we're still continuing to increase. But butter production was down for we thought it would be on a seasonal basis. I like to look at butter to non-fat dry milk ratio, because that tells us whether the butter is coming from a butter powder plant or whether it's coming from skimming off other products. And so this has been going up, and right now we're just about on that long-term trend. The ratio between butter and non-fat dry milk has been going up and down quite a bit. Prior to August of 22, butter was kind of the stepchild, and then butter got into the driver's seat all the way up until just a couple of weeks ago. And now all of a sudden, non-fat dry milk is worth more than butter. Ice cream is very seasonal and should be coming down this time of year. And again, we're just about on that long-term trend, maybe just a gear higher at this point. But that did come in a little bit more than we expected it to. But we expect this to fall off pretty quick here. Yogurt production is increasing. I'd kind of declared it persona non grata here back in 21-22, saying I thought that this was just going to not be a very popular product anymore, but that proved me wrong, and then we're starting to increase again. And here's our long-term trend, so we're off of that by quite a bit. The one that's going ballistic on us is cottage cheese. I mean, just look at these last 3 years, just almost straight up in terms of production. It's coming in higher than we thought it would be, and this is really becoming the new fad in dairy. So I said we got the dairy products report on Wednesday, and then it didn't come until Thursday to get the dairy exports, part of why this is a day late. So the next milk market tidbit will probably be for the federal milk marketing data that will start coming out at the end of next week. And we'll be in one of those dark zones here for a little while to where we don't get much data.